I have an embarrassment of riches in terms of monitors.
Yeah, I'm kind of flush here as well. Okay, I've pushed the go live buttons, and now I need to check and make sure that they've actually worked on both Facebook and YouTube. Looks like YouTube has worked. And we'll take a look at Facebook.
Have you done a show yet on your technology setup?
No.
Or streaming? You should.
It's a closely guarded secret.
This is impressive.
Okay, we're live on both, so we are doing good. Let's see, I'll just leave that there. Got the music ready to go. Everything should be good. Here it goes. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, and from across the entire triangle, sequestered at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this... Should never try to ad-lib during the music. This is the Triangle Talk Show. It is episode 82. Oh no, I'm supposed to also push buttons when I say this is the Triangle Talk Show. For the video, folks, you see that. And it is episode 82, April 12th, 2020. A report from the Hoods. I guess you guys are the Hoods. Volume 3. And we're going to go find out what's been going on. It's been a couple weeks since we did a show. So we'll find out what's happening with you guys. I got Breandan and Jen. My wife Cindy may come and join us later on. She got behind the clock and is scrambling to take care of business before she comes join us. She might make the last half of the show. So I'm this guy. I am Gary Pearce, and Breandan and Jen. You guys have both produced podcasts since last we met. Breandan, yours the Practical Operations podcast. You did episode 88, experimenting with Kubernetes on ARM. And it's at operations.fm. Is there anything in it that ordinary humans can understand?
It's a rather tailored and focused podcast that talks about Unix and Linux maintenance and operation stuff. And if that's not your world, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. If you think about it, we're essentially the janitors that keep the internet running. We keep all the systems, all the pieces of the back ends that keep Facebook and Google and those things alive and healthy and error checked. We're the ones that make that part of it happen. So it's that kind of work.
When you put it that way, it sounds important.
It can be. It's interesting.
I wouldn't want my internet to stop working at this juncture. We kind of rely on it.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Okay, so Jen, we're going to officially call you Nanny Jen.
That's my name on my podcast.
Yep, you do the Nanny Cast with a bunch of other people. Nannycast.com. And your recent show was episode 22, Employee Misclassification, and how nannies are really W-2 employees, not 1099 contractors. First of all, you can be impressed that I understood that.
I am. And I can tell that you actually listened to the podcast.
I did, and I used to be an independent contractor. I actually incorporated myself to make it easier for the customers, which changed everything. They didn't 1099 me anymore anyway. But what you did on that podcast, although it was pointed at nannies, I think it has a wide application in the gig economy.
Yeah, it sort of does. I believe the Uber drivers sued Uber in California. Somebody quick check me on those facts, because they discovered that they didn't meet the qualifications for a 1099 contractor, and they were actually employees. And our podcast does cover what you have to have or to be a 1099 contractor versus an employee. That said, nannies are referred to as employees in law by the title nanny. So that's pretty simple. We're W-2 employees. We can't be 1099 contractors. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who work in the world of accounting who didn't take the special domestic employee class when they were going through accounting school. It's not part of the standard curriculum, so it's understood that they wouldn't know, and they get this wrong.
Do any of your colleagues incorporate themselves? It's not cheap.
No, there's no. First of all, you carry a higher legal liability as an independent contractor than you do as an employee. And second of all, it costs more. You pay double the FICA tax. So there's really, really no benefit to doing that.
Now, Breandan, you're an employee, right?
Yes. I have done independent contracting before, and I have a bunch of friends who have been in that business as well. And it's kind of an even split between people doing S-Corp or whatever and just filing it as an independent contractor and doing 1099s. So I've watched it kind of go both ways, and people file whatever their tax advice says is best for them. I've never done enough of it to make it worthwhile to file as a corporation. I take the independent contracting stuff and I just pay the extra taxes on it and go.
Yeah, I closed my corporation when I stopped freelancing. There'd be some minor advantages to still having it, but taxes were expensive getting them filed. So, and Jen, you're right. You are paying both sides of the FICA tax, which ordinary employees don't understand because they're paying about 6%. I guess not. Well,
7.5.
Okay. They're seeing 7.5% of their wages withheld, but the company is also kicking in 7.5%.
Yeah.
And if you're a
1099, you pay all 15.
Yeah. And if you own your own company, you pay all 15, which starts to add up. So it's been a couple of weeks since the last show. Wondering if you guys have seen any changes in your routine in your life. Have you known anybody who has contracted the virus? Maybe anybody who has recovered from it or anybody who died? Jen, go ahead.
Not personally, but we now have reports of nannies who have perished after contracting COVID-19 in service of their child care to essential employees because they still took public transit to get to work or whatever. And the nanny world has put together a fund that's being raised to provide for the children, the biological children of the nannies who have passed, not their charges.
And
several.
Yeah, go ahead.
Several of my coworkers who live in Italy have been close to and exposed to people, but I don't know of anybody there directly who has it. But within one degree of separation, I have my parents' friends, like in New York area, have definitely experienced loss in those senses. So,
yeah, I have actually not. I don't know anybody personally who has either contracted it or passed away, but I'm 2 steps away of a friend who lives in Paris, and he had a friend, an elderly friend, who caught it and died pretty quickly. And that is about as close as I've come among the people that I know, either in real life or right on Facebook. So I don't know whether that shows anything or not. Does it show that it's still kind of rare out there? I mean,
in North Carolina, it's kind of rare in terms of deaths. In the Triangle, we've done really, really well. Somebody looked at the numbers last night, my housemate, and he said in the whole Triangle, we only have 1 death, and that was in Orange County. So we shouldn't know people who died yet.
Yeah, and the doubling rate for infection seems to be slowing. Slowing the curve seems to be working, at least in Wake County. A couple days ago when I looked, the rate of doubling was 8.5 days, and I want to say that's up about 12 days now. So we are definitely getting on the right side of this, and all of these painful measures we're taking to limit exposure and limit going out and limit all those things seems to actually be having the desired effect. So as painful as it is, folks, stay home, please.
And I'm going to jump in and mention a term called gaslighting. And gaslighting is when somebody tells you that your experiences are wrong. And so you're going to hear a lot of gaslighting that these numbers are going down because the disease would have already done that anyway. That's gaslighting. These numbers are going down because we're staying home. And the trick to countering gaslighting is know your truth and own your truth. And that is the truth.
Absolutely.
As the experts have been talking about this, they said, well, if we are successful in reducing the spread of the virus, if we are saving lives, if we are keeping people from catching this, it's going to look like it wasn't going to happen anyway.
There was an epidemiologist, I believe, in the UK, whose original forecast was 200,000 deaths, I believe. And a couple days later, he gets up in front of the government bodies and says, we're now looking at 15 to 20,000 deaths. And they're like, oh, well, what's so different? It's like, well, the data has changed. These models, we run hundreds of simulations per model run, and when you change the inputs, you change the outputs. So definitely, that's the whole idea of this, is that we reduce the amount of people who get sick, the amount of people who die, the overwhelming capacity of the healthcare system, ER beds, all those kinds of things. It's working, and that's what we need to keep on doing.
Yeah, as I watch the news, especially because around here, again, it hasn't gotten super bad, but it's been super bad in New York, in Seattle, the Washington area. And even those places, they prepared for something worse than what they're getting. And
which is excellent.
Yeah. So if you sit there and say, well, just a bunch of, Chicken Littles saying that the sky is falling. No.
Cause, meet, effect.
Yeah. They worked hard at doing what. Now, I don't know how political you guys want to get. This is a political show sometimes. We didn't do a political show last time I had you guys on. I will point my finger at Trump and say he was really late, and people did what they could anyway. Governors and mayors did what they could anyway.
Yes.
And he doesn't.
I think we would be much more like South Korea if we had gotten to action 5-6 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
In terms of the exposure and the number of issues. If we had done contact tracing, if we had done masks, if we had done a lot of other things early, and that is directly in the hands of the federal government, not owning this and saying this is a problem we need to deal with seriously.
Yeah.
Well, the CDC lost. The CDC's entire pandemic team was removed and not replaced by our current president. So,
which is just sad.
Okay, so we're not going to have a Trump fight by any of you guys here. Somehow I didn't expect that would happen.
Not when I live in Chapel Hill. You're not.
Oh yeah, the People's Republic. I remember. So there are some numbers to look at, but before we do that, I was wondering, have you guys had any changes in your lives, or have they been stable? What you keep doing what you're doing?
I got my dried garbanzo beans.
You were hunting for those. They weren't showing up.
3 weeks later, finally came in.
Excellent. Our kids go back to school tomorrow in terms of the virtual school with the mandatory, or not mandatory, but the required times and durations of things. So we've gone from the testing and trying to figure it out to we're going to start actually doing school again tomorrow. So that will be certainly interesting to see how that fits into everything else. My wife is a student right now. She's undergraduate, and so she is also working on papers and things kind of normally. The only real change is our mental health is still slowly deteriorating in terms of not having gone anywhere, not been doing things. So we're trying to find new creative ways to support ourselves and support each other.
Remember places.
I'm sorry.
Remember going to places.
That whole category of nouns.
There are a bunch of people that has said from the beginning of this, I have been practicing all my life for exactly what we're in here. I'm afraid I'm one of those people, although I do miss going places and doing some traveling. Breandan, how old are your kids?
8 and 11.
And are they going to public school?
Yeah, they're both at Cary Elementary, which is walking distance from our house, which is awesome. And we are now looking at the fact that we're probably not going to go back to school this semester. We're probably not going to go back in while my son's in 5th grade. It's just going to be next year he goes to middle school without having gone back to a building. So that's going to definitely be a change for everybody here. Yeah.
Last I heard, they hadn't definitely canceled physical school for the rest of the year, but everybody's expecting that they will.
Yeah, I wouldn't put money on going back this term.
I want to find out what it is that they are going through, getting ready, how this is going to work. But Jen, I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the kids that you care for. You don't have any of your own, but how old are the kids you care for? And are they public school or what's the deal?
The oldest is 5. He is public school. He's kindergarten. And then the younger one is preschool. They're both out of school and at home. The 5-year-old gets work sent home by his teachers. And so far, it hasn't been digital. It's just been paper and pen, which is odd because the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools absolutely have, just as a matter of practice, for years and years, made sure that every student has digital technology access and internet in their home. So if ever there were a district who could just switch over to virtual schooling, it's Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. But so far, they've gone with just worksheet packets and workbooks. And Actually, I appreciate that because it allows me to do a schedule more in keeping with the natural highs and lows of his energy throughout the day, rather than school's more rigid structure, which children sort of suck up and deal with, but maybe not healthy.
So you're transferring physical stuff back and forth to the school as they complete their assignments, or do they even need to send it back?
We're keeping it. We're keeping it in a big stack. I assume it's going to go back at the end. Okay. I was a school teacher before I became a nanny, so I am in my stride. I am full on governess right now. So I'm, I know how to access the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. I know how to throw together lessons to meet that, or I know how to take a worksheet, figure out what's in the worksheet that was the information that was supposed to attempt to be communicated, and reteach that in a way that the worksheet might not accomplish for the individual learners. So he's lucky.
He is. That's really awesome.
Yeah. Have you been addressing that on your podcast to get other nannies up to speed who don't have that background?
No, but there are several ongoing Zoom or Facebook Live professional development events, and that's been where that information is being conveyed to nannies instead of in a podcast, because it's a little bit more visual than a podcast allows itself to be. I know your podcast is visual. Mine's just all audio.
Yeah. Hey, Breandan, guide us through how this works with your kids. You say you'd done some dry runs and practice tests?
Yeah, so the school 2 weeks ago sent out a bunch of links to various, each teacher is allowed to handle this kind of how they want to. And so there's a mixture of doing group video chats, doing guided presentations, having links to videos and other things to watch, Google Classrooms or what have you for doing actual assignments and submissions. And starting tomorrow, they have kind of mandatory or required check-ins, where in the morning, all the students join a video call with the teachers, and then the teachers will have office hours in the afternoon from, I think, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So if they have questions or problems with the assignment, they can kind of log in and ask for help and answers. We are very lucky that my mother-in-law lives with us, and she is a science educator. So she's an invaluable resource in terms of helping keep them on task, but not ruler to the knuckles kind of on task, but just sort of guiding them and reminding them that, hey, you need to be doing schoolwork and need to be kind of focusing on these things. Cary Elementary, I want to say, handed out 180 Chromebooks to students who either didn't have technology at home or didn't have access to things. They're trying to provide internet to some families who don't have internet at home, and they're also still doing their food program. So there's going to be pickup of lunches. I don't remember the times, but they're trying to structure things around that and encourage the kids to get physical activity and to spend time doing free reading as well as educational structured reading, that kind of stuff. So it seems to be a reasonable attempt to kind of go through the appropriate pieces of the curriculum to say, okay, we're definitely working on doing academically rigorous things, even though I think we all know that this is going to be really interesting the first week, especially as we all figure this out. Everybody's new at this, and let's see if this works.
So first of all, they're not using Zoom. They got their own proprietary software.
Google Hangouts, I think, is what they've moved to.
Okay, they're actually using.
There are some security questions around Zoom, unfortunately. Zoom has gotten a lot of bad press in the past 2 weeks. They've had an unprecedented surge of use, which has led to people discovering deficiencies in their setup, we'll say. I don't want to be too specific about it because I'll misspeak and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but the school system has decided not to use Zoom. Okay.
Well, there's been Zoom bombing.
Yes.
I listen to a lot of tech podcasts and they've talked about that extensively. And I participate in a Zoom a Zoom protest, I guess. A virtual protest. It's the Tuesdays with Tillis people that have been marching in front of the federal building in Raleigh outside of on New Bern Avenue since Tom Tillis was elected senator. And that's not a good idea for them now. So they've gone to a Zoom conference. They had one very successful one. The second one I missed, and I'm sorry I missed it because they got Zoom bombed. And I would have loved to see how that worked. So they took advantage of some of the enhanced, the security features that had always been there, but Zoom didn't do a very good job of explaining them. The two that I'm familiar with are requiring a password and putting people in a waiting room before allowing them in. And that the password, I'm not sure how that works because you're passing out a invitation that's got the password connected to it. And what the Zoom bombers have been doing is somehow getting a hold of the invitations and passing them out. And if it comes with a password, they're still going to get in.
So from my understanding, the Zoom meeting ID is globally unique regardless of what Zoom organization you belong to. So you can just punch in 10 random numbers, and if it's not password protected, you can just join people's meeting rooms.
Okay.
Yeah, they were brute forcing it.
And so
the
you
password is a two-factor.
Yeah.
Okay. So the password is effective.
Yeah.
And then
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I want to say Google has banned the use of the Zoom desktop client entirely within their organization among their 90,000 employees. Like it's that bad that they said you can use the iOS and Android apps, you can use the web app, you cannot use the desktop client right now.
Okay, so the Tuesdays with Tillis protest last Tuesday, using the password and not the waiting room was successful. They didn't get bombed. So, and
that's good.
And as a very partisan political group, they're both prone to that. They're highly targeted, and as a left wing protest group, and I think if I'm correct, it's the trolls that have been doing the bombing have been, if they're political at all, they've been right wing. And some of them may just be anarchists, but I think it's been sort of a right wing thing. The 4chans and the 8chans types.
I've got some other directions I can send them in if they're looking for a project. I mean, there's some actual anarchy they could be doing.
The anarchists? Yeah. Perhaps you need to get on the 8chan and point them in different directions. Anyway, it was successful. So, but once you get a black eye like that, it kind of sticks for a while. Mm-hmm. So Zoom is, it might be a while before people feel comfortable going back. Although I think they're still getting plenty of business.
Oh yeah, and I mean everybody's kind of experiencing these crazy surges in requests and trying to figure out how to handle it. One of my friends his daughter just had a child in Charlotte, North Carolina, and his daughter and her partner are both in the restaurant business, and so they're both out of work, which is the unfortunate sign of the times. But the North Carolina unemployment insurance lines are just completely jammed because it's an unprecedented surge of people calling in, and they're trying to bring on more call center support and more server support and more other things, but you just can't. Some things just aren't working yet. And it's been a couple of weeks since they were laid off, and they still can't get filed.
Which would be a really great job if you've been laid off to be a call center support. I mean, I know it's probably not what you want to do, but hey, that's income right there. And what I've been disappointed with in North Carolina is I haven't seen the ability to apply for those jobs. They say they want to hire, but where's the mass announcement? Where's the mass invitation? Yeah,
and I haven't seen those things either, but I have been heads down on other parts of my life, unfortunately, right now. I'm lucky enough that I'm still employed and I can work from home, so I haven't had to go seek those things.
Yeah, that's one area where I do have a friend who is affected because she's been laid off, and her Facebook feed is got some of the trials and difficulties of getting through to unemployment, not getting unemployment payoffs, but just being able to get through. She hasn't been able to do it yet. And the Reddit, where we all met, is full of stories like that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be that way for a little while. Just trying to get these things scaled up is always a challenge, and doing it very quickly when you can't necessarily have people come together to meet to talk about stuff, and they're adapting to remote work adds more layers of challenge to it.
And maybe they're getting Zoom bombed when they try it. So wait a minute, you said you're one of the janitors of the internet. You're supposed to clean all this stuff up. What's going on?
So I work for a company named Sysdig, and we do a monitoring suite of tools. And so we sell that to other companies to monitor their infrastructure, and we give support for that. In the past, I've worked for organizations and helped them with telemetry and internal tools to say, hey, are things working correctly or not? But in terms of actually scaling things out, that's yet another different part of the stack. It's one of those areas where it's almost infinitely complex, that you can make it as complex as you want to. And so people often kind of let it grow, and it becomes a crazy octopus.
Yeah, and you really can't clean up the entire internet.
No.
The whole thing is not your responsibility.
Yeah, I have my little corner.
All right. So just checking the news sites this morning, North Carolina's coronavirus case totals jumped to 4,520.
We knew that would happen.
Today. Yep.
Is that a difference in testing, or is that a difference in actual transmission?
I'm going to say nobody knows because they're not testing.
Then, yeah, okay.
Not doing
a little of column A, a little of column B.
Yeah, that number is a useless number because we don't know how many people have got coronavirus in North Carolina because not nearly enough people are being tested. Not only are they not testing everybody, which they would have to do to really know how many there are, they're not doing what they do for political contests, just random samples. Just go out there and test 1,000 or 2,000 people, and you will get an idea of what in the population has the virus. And they're not even doing that.
And from my understanding, it's difficult because you can either have mild symptoms or be asymptomatic and have it and spread it, but not really know or really be impacted. So people are only getting tested when they get really ill.
Yeah, and they won't test you unless you meet some certain qualifications, and even some of those are, well, in Wake County, they're even saying that if you have the all the symptoms of coronavirus, of COVID-19, and you probably do, but it's mild, we're not going to test you.
But you see, did you see why? They made an announcement that due to the limited number of tests, they're only testing to help with the resource allocation of the ventilators. So if you don't need a ventilator, they don't care because they're using those tests to move the ventilators around.
Yeah. But then they'll say
it's not like they have a drug treatment or a drug therapy that they can use right now. If you have a mild case, they just say, okay, well, make sure you get plenty of fluids and get rest.
Yeah. But then they release a number of how many people they say have it, and that number is pretty much useless.
Yeah.
We do know how many people died, 81 deaths across the state. And actually, I hadn't looked at the number, the Jen, that you had mentioned for just in the Triangle area, but it was what you said was 9?
1 in Orange County, 0 in Wake County. One in, well, they said Orange/Durham County, because apparently it was close to the county line. Okay,
so it's not much happening around here.
Which is great. Keep going, guys.
And it's because what we're doing good. We're doing our social
distancing.
Good.
We're doing it right.
Yeah, I think we got in early enough that we curbed the spread relatively early in the transmission pipeline. So we're not going to run out of ICU beds. We're not going to run out of hospital space. It's still a huge strain on the people who are working in the medical field right now, but it's not nearly as bad as it could be.
Yeah, that said, UNC has a lot of empty beds because they're prepared. UNC hospitals, I should say, has a lot of empty beds because they're prepared. They're waiting. They're ready. They anticipate. So they've been clearing beds.
The story I was reading said the number of people currently hospitalized, and I think that this is statewide, is 331, and that's a bit of a drop. Dropped 31 from yesterday, so 331. And so that's also not a lot compared to the states that are getting hit a lot harder. The Wake County doubling rate is about 12 days. And again, the case number, not worth very much because there's not very much testing. The death count, the number of people who have died, I think it's important to understand that is a lagging indicator. It's going to keep going up for a while because someone who dies from coronavirus, COVID-19 today got it 5 weeks ago. Yeah, at least 2 weeks ago and maybe a lot longer. So we won't see that start to drop for another couple of weeks. So I guess the question is, are we turning the corner, flattening the curve in North Carolina? Can we even tell?
I so hope we're flattening the curve. I really do. As an essential employee, I really, really do, because my life is on the line every day when I leave the house, and flattening the curve saves my life. So I'm very invested in that outcome.
Yeah, and I think we are, but I don't have enough data to actually know. If we started doing randomized sample testing and those kinds of things, we would have a much better understanding of this. But I understand that the tests take a long time to get results back, and there's only so many of them, so they can't just blanket test.
Yeah. There are some other things that are coming online for faster testing and for testing other things, the serum testing, which would find out whether you have had it and whether you are potentially immune. And I don't think anyone is claiming for sure that you gain immunity. They're saying probably, but I don't think anyone's saying for sure. But the real question then is, are we going to jump on these statistics at the very leading edge of them and say, took care of that problem, back to the restaurant, back to the bar, back to the disco?
I really hope not. That is the fastest way to have a huge secondary spike of infections and really destroy all the progress we've made.
But y'all can do that. I don't plan to die. So you jump on that, you go back to the bar, you get it, you die, I'm stay here.
All right, so there's going to be some new rules that start tomorrow for North Carolina. Store occupancy will be limited to 20% of the store's fire capacity. And you may have seen probably just about any place you go, a maximum number of people that are supposed to be able to be in some place. So 20% of that, or 5 people per 1,000 square feet of retail space. That starts at 5 p.m. On Monday, tomorrow. If violating that's class 2 misdemeanor, masks still not going to be required in North Carolina, even though my microphone now has one. Pull it into the picture.
I was going to ask about that.
A homemade mask that a friend of ours made for us. So speaking of people sewing masks, there's a sewing machine behind you, Breandan. What's up?
Yeah, so I have been wanting to make camping hammocks for a while, and while we are all stuck at home slowly losing our minds, I figured this was a great time to learn that, and a great place to start instead of trying to run a 12-foot double-rolled hem. Starting on a mask is a lot easier. It's a 6-inch hem instead of 12 feet. So that's kind of where I'm starting out, and I cleared some space, and I got the sewing machine out, and that's all I've done so far. So I need to... I need to get more of it going, but that's my next project for keeping my hands from being too idle.
All right. So you will give that a try.
Oh, absolutely. We've got fabric, we've got lots of thread, and all kinds of other things. I just need to learn how it all works.
Okay. I have learned that the stay-at-home orders for North Carolina are statewide. There are a few areas that have curfews. And this is from a News and Observer fact check article, because it appears to be pretty confusing because it's not universal around the state. The closest ones appear to be in Columbus County and Fayetteville. And I'm not sure what time of day their curfews are, but if you're planning on going down there, I guess you need to be aware, and it's probably at night. I don't know if it starts as early as 6, but sometime probably early evening until sometime early in the morning, you're going to have some kind of permission to be out, and just wanting to go play is not going to do it. Nearby states, and again, it's the country is a patchwork. Virginia, their governor Ralph Northam has closed schools for the remainder of the school year, and their stay-at-home order lasts until June 10th. I think the North Carolina stay-at-home ends at the end of May.
Beginning of May, I thought.
Oh,
I think it's the end of April unless extended.
Okay, so it's still pretty short. So Virginia, June 10th. If you really are chafing at the restrictions and you want to die, go to South Carolina, because businesses can stay open. There is no statewide stay-at-home order. Some cities have them, and I guess we can give their governor, Henry McMaster, a little bit of credit, because other states, the governors have overridden more restrictive city ordinances or rules. I'm thinking Mississippi or Louisiana, maybe even Georgia or Alabama. In any case, he didn't do that. If some South Carolina cities are more restrictive, but the state itself does not have a statewide stay-at-home order, and some businesses can stay open. And I don't know about restaurants down there. The article I was reading didn't say. But if you are chafing at this, head to South Carolina, and then maybe even like Mississippi or something.
And then stay there, please.
Yeah, don't come back here. Let's see. This might affect you a little bit more, Jen. Well, you're in Chapel Hill. We'll see. The Durham Fire Department is going to stop responding to some EMS calls.
Oh. Well.
Maybe most people don't understand how this works. And I learned about it more than 10 years ago when I had to call 911 because my wife was choking. Just woke up in the middle of the night, unable to breathe. And now I wish she was here to tell her side of the story, or the details she remembers. This happened a couple times. And it was as a test of me, because you never know how panicked you're going to be when something like that happens. And I kept a fair amount of cool and called 911 and said, my wife is choking and can't breathe. And I'm a ham radio guy and a scanner geek, and I listen to the EMS and the fire department calls, and I hear that a lot. That's one of the more common calls is breathing difficulties. The fire department showed up. I expected an ambulance. The fire department showed up both times.
Yep, they're the first responders.
Yep. Well, they are usually the first responders because they're usually closer. They can get going faster, and they're probably already closer to you than an ambulance is. It wasn't long before the ambulance showed up as well. And I remember I broke my arm riding my bicycle on Greenway, and my friends got me up to the nearest street and called 911. And I remember riding in the ambulance, but I think a fire truck showed up first.
Yeah.
And what the reason is that it's COVID-19 stuff. They just don't want to put the fire. They want to minimize the number of people that are going to be at risk, and especially firefighters, to take the gender out of it. They say that this is in Durham. They're still going to be responding to life-threatening calls. It's just if the dispatcher can determine that what you're calling about is not life-threatening, then they're not going to dispatch the fire department. They'll just send the ambulance. And even then, the ambulance crews are going to limit their interaction with you to what they need to do.
So I take it Durham doesn't have a combination fire EMS. We do. They both roll out of the same building.
Yeah, that I don't know. And I know that here in Wake County, some of the fire departments have ambulances, but not all of them do.
Yeah, so, and some ambulances are dispatched directly from the medical centers. About 10 years ago, I was hit by a car walking through a pedestrian crosswalk, and Big Wake was close enough that an ambulance came from Big Wake directly to me and not from another dispatch point.
Yeah. So I'm not enough of an expert to be able to say exactly how this works, other than looking at the stories about what's going on in Durham and knowing the fire department is often a first responder and shows up before the ambulances do. Now, it's going to depend on what you tell the 911 operator. Wake County's thinking about that. They're not doing it yet. Orange County has stopped sending fire departments to calls. So this is where you are, Jen. Orange County 911 has stopped sending fire departments to calls when the patient is suspected of having the coronavirus infection. So if what you tell the dispatcher is and they're going to quiz you, I'm sure, sounds like you've got it, they're not going to send the fire department. They'll just send the EMS. Might be a somewhat delayed response. Carborough, you're on the border, right?
I'm right on the border. If I walk 5 feet that way, I'm in Carborough.
Okay, so you may want to, if you're having trouble, you may want to walk over to Carborough because they're still going to send fire department. Well, they'll do it when EMS is not available. So that's one of the few really local stories that I'm seeing about how things are working.
Oh, and speaking of fire department, our local fire departments have asked, please do not burn trash right now. They've had to do a lot of fire calls out to people's trash piles that have gotten out of control. Please just don't. The firefighters are needed for much more important things right now.
especially the last 48 hours have been very windy and it's been very dry. And so we actually got a fire advisory not to burn recently via the automated weather service stuff because the conditions were ripe for like uncontrolled fires. And the last thing we need is putting more load on the emergency services.
Yeah, we have been having really nice weather, mild and dry, although kind of windy. I guess windy is what's the bad weather about it. So I'm seeing the greenways being pretty busy. If you guys, are you getting out of the house and walking and doing stuff to get some exercise, get some fresh air?
So I go running through my neighborhood just because I can stay in the middle of the road and stay away from everybody. But I have a friend who lives in an apartment, and she was trying to get her kids out to a place where they could be out in nature a little bit and not be cooped up inside. And they drove, it was like 3 parking lots that were just completely full of cars. And so they just drove through and left because with that many cars, they weren't going to chance it.
I've normally done walks on neighborhood streets and not seen a single soul. However, last Sunday, it doesn't matter. I went for a walk with my housemate and we went to go do our to-go order pickup from the restaurant on foot. And so we took some greenway trails to get there, and I have never seen them more crowded in my life. And on the way home, I said, absolutely not. We're going to go on sidewalks. And again, didn't see a single soul. I mean, I get that you want to be that close to trees, but but maybe don't.
Yeah, we have a greenway that runs right behind our house. They're easy to get to here. And I will call them busy, but my estimation is it's easy to stay 6 feet away from people. In front of you, behind you, there dozens of feet, but there's always going to be somebody within sight. And so the closest people you're going to be seeing are the people you're passing. And the greenways are maybe about 6 feet wide, so you got to stay right on your edge of the greenway. And most people seem to be doing that people don't seem to be intruding in your space. As you were looking at it more skeptically and with more concern, is it even more crowded than that?
It's way, way more crowded. There were easily 3 parties walking abreast on a greenway trail that was much narrower than 6 feet. We had people on bikes and running, and when they were passing very close. They weren't giving appropriate space. It was way too crowded for my personal comfort.
Yeah. And that's the reason that I haven't been going out to do that kind of stuff, because
danger, Will Robinson. Practically, I guess, a very brief encounter with someone, even if someone has active COVID-19, walking past them on the greenway is not particularly dangerous unless they sneeze at you. Just breathing, probably not bad enough unless because you're not going to be encountering them very long.
Sneeze, cough, or say plosive.
Yeah.
So if they're talking to a buddy and they're talking, you don't want to be in that spray.
Yep. So the 6 feet is important. That super brief encounter of just walking past them or they ride past you on a bike, it's going to be pretty limited, but it's not zero. It's a non-zero number. So how much risk do you want to take?
And this is one of those places that normalizing the use of masks would be very helpful because it helps. It is not a preventative. It's not going to be a complete prophylactic, but it will help reduce the spread. It will help make that percentage chance drop even further. So it's safer to be on a greenway or in the grocery store picking up the essentials or whatever it is, and not have the stigma associated with mask wearing would be really handy at this point. So I encourage everybody who can to do that.
Is there any stigma left?
I don't know.
Jen, do you wear a mask when you go out?
I don't, because I don't go to any places that are crowded. And so my lovely poxy breath that could infect any of you can't because you're not there. That said, I don't do it because I have glasses and I have a very small face and I love masks and they're great. And I wear them when I visit people in the hospital and, I have allergies or whatever, but I can't get that nose fit that doesn't immediately fog my glasses. So instead, I have opted just not to go to crowded places.
Yeah.
That works.
Wearing the mask, as I understand it, I don't want to pretend I'm an expert. I'm just repeating what I've seen said in articles and on TV. wearing the mask protects the people around you more than it protects you.
Yes.
So, so if you do that and you don't think you're infected and you do that, you're basically saying to other people around you, not I'm infected, watch out for me. It's I respect you. I care and I hope you care back.
And the even better way is to just not be around people. Like, you're supposed to wear a mask if you can't avoid going to the grocery store, if you can't avoid going on the Greenway. You're supposed to stay home in your bubble where you're surrounded by walls and doors and windows to keep your gross, germy spittle to yourself so that the people outside don't get sick more. That's better.
And I'll disagree a little bit on the Greenway part because as I'm seeing it, at least on the greenways that I've been on, again, I think I can get plenty of distance, and I'm not worried about it. But everybody gets to make that consideration yourself. I did go to Harris Teeter last Thursday. That's the last time I was there, and I wore a mask. Not this one because it came in later, but just your standard paper mask. And you're right, my glasses fogged up. It was very difficult, so I haven't figured out how to do that. And I thought I had it pinched, well enough under my glasses that it shouldn't have been getting some air up there, but I'll have to practice and learn how to do that better. I had seen stories that some cities across North Carolina are considering closing their parks because too many people are showing up.
Well, all the state parks are closed, definitely.
Yeah, so most of them are. There may be a couple that are open. Their website will tell you. Umstead is closed.
Yeah. But the city parks definitely are open, and I'm not a fan of that either. It encourages people to do things that are risky and normalizes going out right now, and we should not be doing that. So that's where I am on it.
I think it's very aspirational. I think that there's such a real hope for humanity in leaving the parks open. That the authorities really think that we as people can manage to really do a good job isolating ourselves from other people. Unfortunately, I also think that those people who believe that haven't been to Walmart lately or Home Depot. So I have to say that, sometimes you have to take off the rose-colored glasses, Pollyanna, and realize that people are dumb and you need to protect them from themselves sometimes.
Well, especially when you're not protecting them from themselves, you're protecting everybody else from them. It's not, if this was a case where one person's actions would cause them harm and only them, okay, it's not good, but I can't really stop you from hurting yourself. It's when your action's going to cause harm to lots of other people that I start to worry. Yes.
Yeah, I should have stated, I was thinking, keep them from being a murderer. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Help somebody not take a life today.
I have a co-host that just showed up here.
So cats can get COVID-19 now?
Tigers can. I don't know about domestic cats, but if tigers can, probably domestic cats can.
So now it's bats and pangolins and felines, at least big felines, and humans.
I'm going to have to try to move Batman off the counter because I can't. He's trying to bite me. Doesn't want to go. Come on, Batman. Down you go.
Can dogs get it? Has that been determined yet or seen?
I don't think it's been seen. I don't know that there's enough brain power available to determine it at the moment. I think all the experts are being used in other areas.
Okay. I was surprised when they were talking about the tigers getting it, but I think it was the zoo, the Bronx Zoo, maybe. Mm-hmm. There was a case there, but we just got a puppy. Well, 4 weeks ago we got a puppy, and adding a new member to your family always makes you more worried about vectors in those senses. So.
There are very few diseases that transfer from animals to people, but this is one that can, I guess.
Yep, it's zoonotic. I mean, humans were the third animal to get it in order, so why not a fourth? Why not a fifth?
Yeah.
So I've had to tell the children, don't pet neighbor cats. No.
I don't know what the biological mechanism is that makes them that makes the virus capable of finding a host in one species versus another.
Well, it goes to the protein that it binds to. I mean, if the other species happens to have the same protein, then why can't it bind there? As far as chemicals are concerned, they don't care where the other molecule came from. This is one of the things I used to teach my chemistry class when they talked about, certain chemicals originally coming from the waste stream of another industry. It doesn't matter where that chemical came from. It doesn't matter where that molecule came from. This molecule that binds to that molecule is going to bind to it regardless. And it just so happens that tigers, humans, pangolins, and bats all have ACE2 protein.
Tigers and humans and penguins and bats. Oh my.
Pangolins.
Penguins?
Pangolin. It looks kind of like the cutest armadillo you've ever seen.
I do not think there's been a cute armadillo. That's sort of like saying a cute possum.
I think possums can be very cute, actually, but that's,
Okay. I see possums all the time on the video on the camera I got for my feral cats, because we think we're feeding feral cats. We're actually feeding raccoons, foxes, and possums. And occasionally the cats get in there and get some leftovers. But
feeding raccoons can be somewhat dangerous because raccoons can get very aggressive and injure people's cats that they have. If you have outdoor cats, one of my neighbors when I was a kid was feeding the raccoons, and it did not go very well for others.
Yeah, we don't feed them directly. This is just food we leave out, and I see them on the cameras. They never show up when we're there. But Jen, I was saying we're really lucky to have you here because you got lots of background on different things you can fill us in on. I hope there won't be a quiz.
Not this time. Next time, maybe.
Which reminded me, Breandan, I wanted to ask about going to school and the setup for the online classes. In my mind, I was thinking, well, they would just have the same 4 or 5 classes that the students go to. It'd rotate from one room to another and from one teacher to another, and do the same thing online. But it doesn't sound like that's the way it's going to work out. Their online time is going to be somewhat limited.
Well, also elementary school hasn't yet bifurcated into having the students rotate between classes for math and English language arts and those kinds of things. It's still one primary teacher. 4th and 5th grade, they start to have it broken up more into language arts and math and science. But again, that's also not a hard boundary. So it is still generally this is your primary teacher. They'll be giving you assignments. They'll be giving you kind of the coursework and the material you'll be doing. There'll be videos and instructional material to watch, and then a period of time to ask questions and get answers and support on various pieces of it. And it looks like they're going to try to do like Mondays and Wednesdays, English language arts, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, science, math kind of thing. But I'm not entirely sure about how this is actually going to play out once they start doing it. So.
Okay. And I guess I'm wondering, and I don't know if we've got anybody here who can talk about what will happen for high schoolers, whether they'll be more traditional, like a 30-person Zoom conference, and you join one for language and one for science and one for history and one for English.
Well, I can tell you that when I taught high school science, the active direct instruction, the part where I'm speaking and they're listening and taking in new information, didn't last more than 15 minutes in a class period, because that's about how long the human attention span is at that age. And then after that, it was all practice. Yeah. So I think it would be out of step with what we know about learners for somebody to be on a Zoom conference for the full 50-minute class period, unless they're just waiting there for any questions as the learners work through whatever practice material they need to work through.
Are the kids comfortable with the technology? Very.
I'm always kind of amazed watching my son and my daughter log into the various Wake ID, Wake text, or the Wake ID things, and going, oh, they know what their password is. And it's not a short password. Like they're actually picking reasonable things, and they're very comfortable logging in and flipping tabs, going the various pieces, and okay, well, these are all good skills to have, and I'm glad that they've picked that up.
Jen, your kids, do they have iPhones yet?
One has an iPod Touch, but nobody has iPhones. They're using school-provided computers or home computers. They're not as familiar with technology as I would have expected. Tabs seem very confusing. And the concept of having multiple tabs open, which just like my elderly mother, also multiple tabs confuse her. She'll open the same link in like 17 tabs and then just keep opening the link again because she doesn't know how to just click on the next tab over. And I'm seeing that with the children as well as touchpad mouse skills are off. But no time like the present to learn, right?
And to be fair, I frequently will have, in the dozens of tabs I have open, I'll have the same site open in more than one tab, not realizing I have it open somewhere else. So, that's not necessarily a ding on them. It's been interesting. Both my kids have iPads, and it's been interesting watching them transition over the past year and a half, I guess, to using a mouse or a touchpad, which does not have the same model that, iPods or iPads or other touch devices have. But they figured out they adapt really quickly to it, and they're just rocking along with it. So,
I guess I have understood that kids, and the the meme has been, if you don't understand your technology, go find a 13-year-old. They'll explain it to you. So, not a big surprise. Although yours are a little younger than that. Good. Except for maybe having them have phones. I don't know about that.
Yeah, we don't want the portability of a phone or the smaller devices, and we don't want cell plans. We don't want to be able to be anywhere in the world and have internet. But the iPads are a large enough size. You can read a book on them. You can watch video content on it. You can do Duolingo and those kinds of things. And they're tethered to the house in the sense that it's Wi-Fi only. So if they take it out to the backyard or to the park, it doesn't work for what they care about. So it's okay. That was perfect for us. And in terms of embarrassment of riches, I have a handful of older laptops laying around. So we've just got a couple of laptops set up. So if I'm working and my wife is on a call with her school and both the kids need to be on something independently, we've all got machines, we've all got it set up. And one of them's an 11-year-old MacBook, but it still works. So we're going to use it.
All right. The next thing I had on my list here, and I'm not sure how you guys are going to react to this, but I think that we are in prime time for people who are, I'm going to call them scolds. People who are naturally inclined to get up in your business. This is awesome time for them. Discuss.
I am so prepared for this because I got to see the outline had the scolds for people calling the authorities for people that they knew were breaking quarantine or the stay-home order, and I'm one of those. Well, almost. I went so far as to figure out how to call the authorities because somebody very close to me let me know that they were planning on breaking the stay-home order. And I was in one of those really tough positions where I deeply care about this person, but also I really could not abide knowing that they were going to do something not just criminal, but dangerous, and not do what I could to prevent that. And luckily, just knowing that, I said, look, you've put me in this uncomfortable position and I'm going to have to turn you in, got them to decide to stay home. And so I didn't have to, but I did call 211. I did ask. I found out that the way to turn somebody in is to call the police non-emergency number of the police that have jurisdiction over that person. And with a big knot in my stomach, I was going to have to make that call.
So without going into too many specifics, can you talk about kind of what their plans were? Like what kind of rule breaking it was?
They wanted to go have sex with somebody in a completely other county.
Yeah, that's not having a beer in the yard with somebody. That is definitely within the 6-foot boundary.
Yeah, yes. Got a feeling there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, and it was a romantic partner. It was a romantic partner they hadn't seen in a while. I understood that they missed them. I have had years-long, long-distance relationships. I know what it's like to have the person you love and you're physically intimate with be very, very far away, and for phone calls just to be that frustratingly not sufficient. However, they had not seen each other before the outbreak started, or since before the outbreak started. So, and one of the people involved was a frontline healthcare worker and was traveling from an area of yeah, I see your face. That's exactly why now you understand why I was willing to make the call. Traveling from an area of high infection in the Triangle to an area that had no reported infections.
And especially with front healthcare worker, like that's, that's so dangerous.
And I was like, there's got to be another way. Don't do this, man. Don't do this.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Hormones. Hormones definitely override logic.
Well, even just the stir craziness of being at home. There's 5 people in my house, including the kids, and even with this much social interaction, we're all slowly losing our minds. And I'm an introvert. I prefer to stay at home. I prefer to work from home. I prefer those kinds of things. But I mean, we're 4+ weeks now of not doing anything, of not seeing any of our friends, of not interacting with the world, and it's hard. And people start making bad decisions when you put in situations like that. So it's good to have the people who are at the moment doing a little better to give everybody else a, hey, no, don't do that. Really, you shouldn't be out and about.
Yeah. I'm noticing that one of the things I said, you can rat people out to the police department. You can also rat them out on social media.
I try not to use social media that much. I find it to be kind of depressing. And so...
Yeah, I am morally opposed to what do they call it, rabble rousing, to building a mob. I find that most people who are willing to just raise their pitchforks and go tar and feather somebody because you said so on social media lack the ability to properly parse a situation for its nuance, or they'll just go ahead and dislike the entirety of the person rather than acknowledging that this might be a particular bad judgment that person made, you know, as we discussed, like from a position where we can be sympathetic with like what they were thinking. And so I think it's better to let the authorities who are qualified and trained in such judgments do the judging and do the figuring out of, you know, how to properly punish that.
And yet, oh, go ahead, Breandan.
Just also remember people's comments on Facebook and whatnot. You lose tone of voice, you lose facial expression, you lose a lot of the subtext that tells you how serious they were being or how angry they actually were. And then if people assume that, oh, well, I'm upset, so they must be upset. And then it escalates very quickly. And before you know it, you've got a flame war going on and people are screaming at each other virtually. And it's like they weren't even being serious in the beginning. Can you just back off?
That great outrage engine of Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
But I was going to say it, and yet I found both of you guys on Reddit. And Reddit,
I think my Reddit post history shows that I'm reasonable and capable of nuance. And
just tell you with the Reddit brush in general. I haven't found most of the local stuff, the Triangle, the local cities, even the North Carolina Reddit, to have very much of the Reddit reputation. They're more reasonable places to be, but Reddit's got a reputation.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I've been on for 7 years and I have like 2,800 karma. I'm a low volume poster who doesn't post in anything that is inflammatory. It's espresso machines and technology. It's people don't get bent out of shape.
I think I'm at 390 karma and I've been on for 8 years. But my comment karma is high. People find me reasonable. I've met people in person who've met me or who know of me through Reddit, and they're like, yeah, you're reasonable. We listen to you. So
how do I figure out where my karma is? Here's my...
It's the little number profile up at the top next to your name. Oh, I don't know. You're on new Reddit. I still am using the old thing.
I like new stuff. View. There's my name. Let's see, my profile. I'm not sure how much of this I want to actually show to the general public, so I'll take that off the screen and take a look at my profile. I have 1,054 karma. Is that good?
Better than me.
Yeah.
And I have a cake day. May 16th. I don't know what cake day is.
Your Reddit birthday. Your account birthday.
Oh, okay. And 5 followers. Whoa, 5 followers. Is there anything on the screen that I shouldn't show to the general public? I don't know.
Your payment details.
Yeah.
Keep those private.
I guess I'm not seeing anything, but I'm just scared of it. So back to the list here. Oh, I have a prop.
That's my favorite brand.
This is for the audio folks. I have just picked up a 12-pack. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 12-pack of Scott 1000 toilet paper. This is what I scored at Harris Teeter last Thursday, along with Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi and a bunch of other stuff I was looking for. I tried to put everything together at once. It's the first time in like 3 weeks that I saw anything in the paper products aisle.
Was there a reasonable amount there, or was it just a little bit left?
It was maybe 2:30 in the afternoon, and there were probably a dozen packages like this, and this would be the only brand that they had left. I don't know what they would have started out with and how early in the morning, but it was here. I really should not have bought it because we already had enough. We were not hoarding it from during the crisis. Cindy had already bought like 3 or 4 giant mega rolls, and this was sometime in early February, so before anybody was worried about things, and enough to last us for a good long time. But I saw it. I only bought 1 package, and this is the only size they had left, or I would have got something smaller.
So we've been doing the subscribe and save on Amazon for toilet paper for years now, and of course that has come to a screeching halt recently because of supply issues. But we probably have another 2 weeks at least worth of toilet paper left in the house. So we haven't been trying to get any. We figure maybe another week from now we'll start worrying about it. But trying to let the people who need it and have been unable to get it and have been in a worse position pick up what's available. So I know that's soon on our list of things to worry about, but it's not quite.
If you're running into trouble, let me know. I've got this here. We're not that far apart. I can toss it. Half a block toward you. And I was thinking about it, should I even do this? But there were another dozen or so packages still left. And, there wasn't a mob of people around them. So I'm thinking.
Well, especially at 2:30 in the afternoon. That sounds like the supply chain is starting to get itself worked out again. And that's really comforting to hear.
Yeah. And I haven't been back in the store since then. I haven't asked Cindy. She goes a little bit more often than I do. But she's younger and healthier and not more resistant to this. Nobody's resistant to it. Let's see. Teddy bear hunt. Has anybody heard of teddy bear hunt?
I have.
So you got kids. Have you been on one?
Yep. I would say work with children, heard about teddy bears, Easter eggs, clovers, and rainbows.
I've not heard about the rainbows yet, but there's definitely some houses in our neighborhood that have teddy bears up in the windows, and so I think it's a really good thing.
Now, I guess the question is, are we safe walking around the neighborhoods? I guess it depends on how many people are out doing this. You guys have written off greenways, but neighborhoods not so bad.
Neighborhoods are abandoned.
Yeah, I go for runs in my neighborhood on the middle of the street, and I will see 1 or 2 dog walkers or somebody with a stroller. So I'm out for half an hour, and I see maybe 3 other people. It's really empty.
So does the teddy bear hunt or the other scavenger type hunts get your kids excited?
I cannot say it has, but I think that might just be a personality quirk. This kid is way more excited about dandelions.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And I'm guessing what age does this really cover? Because I'm 70 and I don't have kids, so I'm a long ways from understanding this.
And my kids have picked up a fascination with birds in the last couple of months. I'm not entirely sure what prompted it, but we've been paying more attention to the bird feeders outside the window and suet and hummingbird feeders and those kinds of things, trying to encourage different things to show up so we can look at them. And right now, if it isn't a bird, my kids aren't interested. So there's some herons, nearby and other things that get them all worked up.
Yeah, we saw a heron as we were walking on a greenway in the swampy area off of Evans Road. Sooner or later, there's going to be. We're not seeing that many people who have had COVID-19 in our local area anyway. So this may not really ever be a thing. But I'm going to say, is it going to be weird when we've got some people who have recovered from it and are probably immune and the rest of us are not?
I'm going to send them to the store. That's what's going to happen. They can go to the store for me. They can deal with it with their fogged up glasses from the face mask, and I will just stay home thanks to Neighbor Cart, which is what my neighbors and I have coined our version of Instacart.
So we're going to put them on the front line.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's going to happen to them? They've already had it.
Yeah, especially once we know that you can't be reinfected easily or at all. We will. It's going to be interesting to watch how society reacts to that, especially as the time goes on, and you have a group of people that are relatively safe. And how do we shape policy? How do we shape what we do and how we interact with society at large based on the fact that some people have recovered or never really had symptoms, but they're now relatively immune from getting it again.
For a while, anyway. Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility. They will have to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah. And from my understanding, most viruses that you get immunity from, it's 3 to 6 months of kind of the antibodies in your system, and you can not be reinfected. Of course, every virus is different. Don't take what I'm saying as medical truth, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a research epidemiologist. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But we'll see. So
there's a little extra risk of just contact stuff. They can get it on them, on their clothes, and then transfer it to someplace else and get to you. That's less risky than you getting getting someone's infected aerosol or droplets, but it's still a thing.
Well, especially because the half-life of the virus itself, it's not that long. So somebody breathing on you that's infected is the most dangerous thing. If they breathe on a plastic bag and 3 hours later you pick it up, there's a lot less of the virus left on the bag to infect you. There's still a risk, obviously, but it's far less risky. So anything we can do to keep people out of that direct line of contact is good.
So are we in danger of these people trying to take over society, and should we stone them?
Well, since the people that are likely to get it are likely to be frontline employees and essential employees like myself, I do not recommend stoning them because then you won't have your clean hospitals and your stocked shelves. But also, if they rise up and take over society, we'll just say that I can put on my appetite for eat the rich as well. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah, my comment is that weed isn't legal here, so
So you guys don't watch TV, right?
Not really. I did succumb and watch Tiger King.
Oh my God, the worst possible thing.
Yeah, it's so weird. And nobody in that show was good. Nobody.
No heroes.
I've been binging The Good Place.
That's a better choice.
Me too. It took me a while to warm up to that. I gave it a few episodes, and then I found myself actually, because they end on a cliffhanger, and okay, I'm going to watch the next one. Okay, just one more, because it's only 20 minutes. It's pretty quick.
That style, that ending. I'm always like, yeah, this is going to be my last episode. And then the last 2 minutes, I'm like, no, I need to see more.
Yep.
Whatever that is, they need to bottle that and turn it into exercise motivation.
Okay. Breandan, you're going to have to get going, I understand?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Jen, do you want to wrap it up here, or do you want to talk for a little longer?
I mean, I'm good to go. I have nowhere else to be.
Because we can talk about The Good Place.
Well, thank you for having me on, guys. It was really great talking to you again, and I hope to see you soon.
Let me put your title up here. Breandan Dezendorf, the Practical Operations Podcast at operations.fm.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping the internet going for us.
Yes,
of course. That's what we're here for. And thanks for doing all the things you guys do. I really appreciate it.
All right, it's been fun, and we'll do this again. If not next week, this Pearce is going to go for a while. And if let's put it this way, if everybody's super bored and just enjoys the conversation for an hour or 90 minutes, we'll get together again real quick.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Bye.
I'll let you push your off button, and then it's just going to be me and Jen, and maybe Cindy will show up here, but she's been wandering around the house, but she hasn't cleaned herself up, so I don't think she's going to.
Good place, good place, good place, good place.
If this were an audio only podcast and she could show up just in front of a microphone, then we would have her right away.
I know that there are a large number of people who are struggling with the use of video cameras in this time. not just for podcasts, but for all the Zoom meetings. And I'm doing the Xerox thing where I'm just using Zoom to represent all video meetings.
Yeah.
Zoom's going to lose control of its brand, man. It's gonna become a generic.
Yeah, it'll be a Kleenex, a Xerox Kleenex. We'll Xerox a Kleenex and use it to wipe off our Zoom.
But yeah, that's one of the things I've been hearing from people is they're struggling with these video chats. You know, they don't mind working from home. They do mind the need to be on video for all these random check-ins in the office, like, how are you doing? Or where are you on this project? They wouldn't mind a phone call, but they're struggling with when the other person really wants to see their face. Because some people have let grooming go in this time, which is reasonable. And I have too, and I get it. And we all have. But they feel that they are not allowed to have done that if they have to be on video. I wore lipstick for this.
I didn't put grooming and general upkeep on the list here, but it's an interesting thing to talk about. So,
it shows that we get dressed for the people outside of our house, not for the people inside of our house.
Yeah.
I mean, this time really answers that question. Like, who do we dress up for? Well, all the people out there, because it ain't all the people in here.
Cindy doesn't care. She doesn't care. I don't care what she looks like. She's always beautiful to me. Makeup, no makeup, first thing in the morning.
You save that as a little clip and then give it to her on your anniversary.
I do that now and then. But, it may gain me a few points here and there, but they're so easily flushed. So, it's good place. What?
So I grew up as the daughter
show.
of a moral philosopher, and most of the Good Place just reminds me of like dinner table conversations.
So Chidi is the guy that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a parent who's a moral philosopher as well, and my parent is still actively teaching, and I'm going to introduce that parent to some of the episodes. Go, hey, look, here's a better way to teach utilitarianism and the trolley problem. Here's an episode where they just magically end up in a trolley and freak out.
I guess we should explain. It's a Netflix show, and I think it's a Netflix exclusive.
NBC originally, right?
I don't know.
One of those three-letter.
I only came across it from people referencing it earlier this year, and so it's all on Netflix now. And maybe the last season became a Netflix exclusive. I don't know. Maybe not even. And so I haven't caught up to the end yet. So I've still got a few episodes to go until I get to the end. And I keep thinking it's this stupid show, and again, none of the characters are good. They've all got massive flaws, and so you think that they're not appealing, and yet they're all appealing.
They're human. They're human. They want to be good, or they're trying to be good, or they have moments where they are good, and otherwise they're human. The premise comes from Jean-Paul Sartre's, I can't pronounce French, play No Exit, which is the play that coined the term "hell is other people." So that's where this whole.
If it was just me,
that was the seed for this entire show. And in this show, they are in the afterlife, and there are other people. So you guess whether they're in heaven or hell. No spoilers here. Yeah. But they nonetheless in the afterlife want to improve themselves morally.
Yeah. And just when I think, okay, they've used up their concept, they add a twist. Big twist sometimes a little twist, but they add a twist and hook me right back in. So I'm enjoying it. I recommend it. I tried to show my wife. We don't have very many shows that we like in common. She likes a lot of TV, and I like a lot of TV, and mostly the Venn diagram has only got a very narrow slice that is an overlap. We're actually going back to rewatching the good. There's a lot of shows that are the good something. This will be the good fight.
Oh, yeah.
We like shows that are very wittily written. and David Kelly and Aaron. Okay, now I can't remember his last name for some reason. I'm getting old. My memory is, vocabulary and words disappear. Aaron Sorkin, West Wing, and a bunch of other shows. Guys that write like that. Those are the shows we tend to like, but there aren't a lot of them out there. We'd love to discover a few more. But so to find something to watch for an hour in the evening, we're going all the way back to rewatching The Good Fight, which real sharp, smart show. What I'm enjoying though is the late night hosts and some of the news operations, network and local, that are doing their shows from home, and they look like podcasts. They look like this.
I'm loving The Daily Show in the hoodie at the kitchen table. It's great. It shows that, when you take away the studio lighting, everybody really looks the same.
Did you do Daily Show with Jon Stewart?
I did. I even was a volunteer as part of the Rally to Restore Sanity that Jon Stewart did in Washington, D.C., along with Stephen Colbert, who had a competing rally to make America afraid again or something.
Yeah. And did you transition well to Trevor Noah?
Not so well, no. I find Trevor Noah's comedy a little bit more on the nose, and I've never been a fan of comedy that's that on the nose. But it's like watching Doctor Who. Whenever there's a new companion, it takes you a minute to adjust, and now I've adjusted, and we're good.
So you're up current on Doctor Who's?
No, my mother tried very, very hard when I was young to make me a Whovian, and I got as far as David Tennant, and then I went, I just don't think I can. Yeah. I just don't think, I can pretend to be, but I'm not really in my heart of hearts. I'm not a Whovian.
Yeah, I've been in and out of it. There was a while when I thought it was pretty good. Like the old episodes where they half video and half film, because that's my business, and to see them just unabashedly transition from an indoor shot that they shoot on video to an outdoor shot that they shoot on film. To me, that's like, boom, it hits me in the face. Most audience probably doesn't get it, doesn't have an issue with that. I think everything is done on video now. And there's a female Doctor Who, I guess, now, current iteration.
Yep.
I really got
to
go try to.
There's a female Bond. There's a female Doctor Who.
Yay.
This is clearly... This is clearly the era when we are post-gender.
Yeah, about time. So watching the folks do their shows from home, and they are trying to figure out things that podcasters have worked out a long time ago. Here in our studios in the bonus room or our dining rooms or basements or whatever, we figured this stuff out. I'm noticing they're getting the video pretty well, finally, but they still have a big audio problem. And some of the same audio problems that I run into when I try to bring guests in on my shows is that they're trying to figure out, well, what microphone am I using? What is it connected to? Is it connected to my my Skype? Am I using the webcam mic? Is it, some will have these big impressive microphones, but they end up accidentally getting connected through their webcam mic and sounding like they're 30 feet away. So I was watching one, Seth Meyers, and who does the late show on NBC, and each segment he'd be on a different microphone. Sometimes it would be on the lavalier that's right on him and sounded good, and sometimes it'd sound 10 feet away. And Colbert had similar problems. So they'll get it figured out. This is my chance
to plug lavalier mics, because I see that you are using a condenser mic on a boom arm, but I am 100% all about lavalier mics, although this one happens to be part of a headset, but all my podcast is done on lav mics, all of it.
Yeah, I'm an old radio guy, and I like the real up-close presence of a big microphone. This actually isn't a condenser, for those of you that are deep into the technology. This is a Heil PR40. It's a dynamic mic. But I like...
I'm sorry, I assumed based on the rig it was in.
Yeah. And there are some good cheap microphones that that do a really good job. And this is a $300 microphone, and I bought them before I knew better. But that microphone that is sitting there waiting for my wife to come up against it is an Audio Technica ATR 2100, and it is about $65, and it sounds just about as good as this one does. So,
and say I have used that one before.
Yeah.
So my podcast is mostly nannies, and the nanny industry is predominantly female, although there are men in it, and they do go by the term nanny. That said, my podcast is a lot of women's voices, and we discovered, except for that Ars Technica that you just showed, generally speaking, the big mics don't do really well with a woman's voice and a woman's register, and the lavs do much, much better, especially where they're located, because otherwise women sound too tinny, or they're too sibilant with their S's. Just one of the weird quirks and gender difference, I guess.
Yep. So where you got your mic right now, I'm getting a lot of clothing scratch on it. So.
Yep, that's from my hair.
Okay. Yep. Yeah,
I can clip it up.
Yeah, doing those the ones that are the dangly mics off of your headsets. They can be prone to that if you're not careful about where to place them. I had to place lavalier mics hidden on Talent for a lot of commercials and things that I was audio guy on, and that was an art I had never quite really mastered, because I would use not duct tape, but gaffer tape and all kinds of things to try to get the clothing, not be able to scratch it, but to get it in position where it was going to stay in position. And that was also quite an art. I've got lavalier mics. I could use one here. You'd hear more room ambience and things like that. I like doing this mic because I can sound really good on it.
Yeah, you've got that deep grrr to your voice, which I don't.
Yeah, but the Audio Technica sounds pretty good on the women that I've had on the show. Sounds great on my wife and on a few other guests that I've had talking into it. And again, you get the close up, without any room bounce around. So
that's my one big handheld, beat people over the head with it mic.
Yep, it's not a good handheld mic because it's got a lot of handling noise. You kind of got to have it on.
You can beat people over the head with it. Yeah, it's the trade-offs,
I got a better mic for that. I don't have it handy. The good old Electro Voice EV50, the Electro Hammer. You could literally pound nails with that mic and it will still work just fine. That's what I use when I do field stuff. Commercials, I don't see very many of them, but there's a lot of the ones that I see, a lot of them have started to produce the COVID-19 related commercials with a very soft and comforting voice. We're all in this together. Everything's going to be okay. I
cried ugly tears when Facebook had a commercial up for facebook.com/COVID-19. It was a 1 minute long commercial. They clearly bought out the entire commercial spot on Netflix, or what? I guess it wasn't Netflix I was watching it on, if there was a commercial spot. But I cried. I bawled my eyes out because they just hit all those emotional manipulators just perfectly.
Yep. And then if you're watching one of those things in a commercial break of 4 or 5 commercials, or 7 or 8 or 9 or 15, the way they do them these days, then you get that train wreck into a happy all together now spot that was produced before this, and you got a group of people and they're all happy and they're all together and they're hugging, and it's like, whoa, there's just something that hits my head wrong, going 2 different directions. But not everybody can make a brand new spot, and not everybody's going to work with we care about you, and we're not even going to push our product. We're just going to say, hang in there.
We want you to remember us when the economy is completely dead, and most people are too. Please, when you get out of your house, spend money on us if we're still there.
If we're still there. We're going to run out of new TV shows. I don't think that's true. Big back catalog of TV shows we could all watch, but in terms of the new fall season, there still is a fall season. It's much less of a thing than it used to be. When I grew up, and there were 4 channels on TV, and that was it. The new shows came out in September, And we're all eager to see them because all they've been playing all summer were reruns of the shows that they had from last season. So the new fall season hit. There's still a fall season. They still show a lot of new shows. There's often more spread out, and they'll start new shows in January or February, and they'll start new shows in the summertime. They learn they have to do something different because there's more competition. But, it used to be a real big deal, but right now is when they'd be producing them all. And they may have gotten 2 or 3 in the can before they had to shut down. And they're not going to be able to ramp back up. It doesn't look like for that new season. I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be fun to watch what the networks do for a fall season if they don't have enough shows.
I think they're going to go lower budget. I think they're going to start using some of the content that people are voluntarily producing from their stay-home quarantines and just buying that out and showing it, best of home-based TED Talks, for example.
And now, direct from YouTube on to NBC, the Triangle Talk Show could end up being a network show. We're going to have to up our game a little bit, but not much.
There's beautiful, and there are beautiful podcasts that I'm seeing doing some really excellent stuff where people who normally write for TV have continued to write scripts, and they're just doing I guess what would be in the industry called a table read, where all the actors would get together, except they're doing it over a video chat. So they're doing table reads that way and just releasing those as podcasts. One of the ones that comes to mind is the Dead Pilots Society. And I'm following along with that because I can close my eyes and imagine what it would look like filmed for TV.
Are they acting it out? Serious acting, or are they just reading kind of dry?
No, they're reading, and they're putting the emotion and inflection and as much acting into their voices as possible. But there's also another person who just reads the stage directions in between.
And these are the actors that would be doing a show, or are they the writers?
Mm-hmm. No, they're that. Well, it depends. The Dead Pilot Society are all shows that didn't make it, so there are no actors that would be doing the show. I got the concept, Dead Pilot. Yeah. I haven't heard that, but there are a billion podcasts out there, so we can't get them all. So NannyCast, sounds like a perfect opportunity. Maybe on Fox. I know that TV networks have from time to time really loved the concept of like putting nannies on TV as sort of a drama point, because they think the nannying world is filled with lots of drama. There's Super Nanny, where nanny goes into situations where parenting has gotten out of hand for the parents and needs some of that tough love and some strategies to just sort of clean up their children's situation. And then there were a couple of like Real Nannies of wherever, which were in the works to be filmed, because in the nanny industry, we were all eager and given audition information and, here's how you could potentially be on the show, but none of them have ever made it to air because there's a lot of gatekeeping in the TV world, and nannies just were not that interesting. I mean, anybody who's ever been a parent, you get it. You don't need to watch more of it. If they write you interesting, then it won't be what you're really doing. No. So, a lot of it is changing diapers and reminding people to say please and thank you and sneeze into their elbows and, and saying things like, okay, nap time. And you could join the league of professions that get on TV a lot, and all the shows have nothing to do with what those professions are really like. I mean, cops, lawyers, doctors. Is there anything else? Cops, the show doctors? Super Nanny really does not relate well to the nannying world. I mean, sure, any professional nanny worth their salt who's been doing it for a while can give a parent some strategies that they might not have tried for overcoming behavior problems with children. But in general, we tend not to do that without it being solicited. And I know the characters that they pick to play the super nannies just will come in and be like, I'll tell you what to do. And nannies we're aware of our position as, the employee. And we're not going to just go tell our employers they're doing things incorrectly. All right. I've enjoyed watching how the comics in the newspaper are treating COVID-19. There are a few that are COVID-19 aware. Most are still not. A lot of these get written at least a week or two in advance. So it can be hard to
stay current, but this thing has been going on for well more than a couple of weeks. And so there's a few that are actually, well, I guess the late night comedians are also trying to milk the current situation for comedy. But some of the comics do a pretty good job. The few, 2 or 3 of the dozen or two that are in the News and Observer. Do you ever see comics anymore? Did you ever been a part of your life?
I used to read them, especially in the Sunday paper. My mother still saves them for me, and
clips them out.
But I haven't been able to see her lately. And I don't get the newspaper delivered here anymore because I live in a condo building. When I first moved in, I tried, and we discovered that that the delivery people didn't really have a good system for getting it to me. So I've read articles online. I do have a digital subscription, but I did not know that you could access digital comics. I did not think.
You can. I've been digital only for a while with the News and Observer, and they have what they call the e-edition, and you can look at it. It's a replica of what they would print or what they do print. And if you've got their digital subscription, then you can get to it. News and Observer, newsobserver.com/e-edition.
Now that's handy to know.
Yeah, and you can do it 2 ways. You can look at it on a browser, or you can download a PDF, and the PDF is actually more responsive. It's easier to move around. The web version is clunky. But the PDF, you can move around pretty well. And it looks just like the newspaper if you had had the newspaper. And I've been doing that for a few years. I enjoyed being able to take it on my tablet to lunch and not be knocking over my drink trying to spread out the newspaper or spilling into the aisle. So again, I'm old. I'm really old, but I've been a technology guy all my life, so I kind of warmed up to that. But I still like the layout of the newspaper with the story in 3 paragraphs starting on the front page and then not getting the rest of the story till you get to page 8 and trying to remember what was on page 1, going back to see where you ended up. For some reason, I still like that. I'm a little behind in it. I download it every morning. I'm like 3 or 4 days behind. To keep up with what's really going on, I'll go to the website and get the stories off the website. But I may be transitioning out because I'm doing more web now. But I also subscribe digitally to the Washington Post, and they put their comics on their website. The News and Observer doesn't unless you go to the e-edition. So,
note to self, e-edition.
Yeah. And then
that's included in a regular digital subscription, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is a lot cheaper than they don't want you to subscribe to the Dead Tree version anymore. The e-edition is where they want to go, and it's a lot cheaper. I'm down to the last thing. If we can drag this out just a couple more minutes. How is this going to end? What is it going to look like? Will there be any lasting changes? Will more people decide to work from home? Will we order more takeout food? Is the handshake dead?
Oh, the handshake's definitely not dead.
For all time?
It's not even dead now. I wish it would be, but it's not. People still try and shake hands. The cynic in me thinks that we're going to go back to pretty much what we've experienced already. The optimist in me hopes that we get to define a new normal in which, and sorry to be a little political on your show, but hey, you're political, so
absolutely,
it'll work. In which corporations serve us rather than rule us. I'm really hoping that's going to be the outcome here. Is that we take back consumer control of the economic picture, and we tell our jobs, our bosses, and even people trying to push products at us that they have to work around our humanity and our needs for health and safety and mental health and all that, rather than being wage slaves or salarymen. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm cynical about that in the end, really.
I would say there won't be a wholesale change. Maybe we'll get a little bit of it.
But I'm also old enough, with the dyeing the hair, it's hard to tell how old I am. But I've lived through everybody goes to work, to, oh, hey, working from home is great, to, oh, wait, we're missing out on those water cooler like interactions that could be happening. So everybody go back to work. And, to me, this is the pendulum swinging. We look like we're swinging into another, distance work time, and then we'll swing back and swing back and swing back, and so on and so forth it goes.
Yeah. I get the feeling from Trump on down to some people, they think that this is going to be like throwing a switch and it's over again.
It's going to be like cleaning up after a house fire.
That's a good analogy.
You'll go back to normal, but your photo albums will still always smell like smoke.
Yeah. And do we get back to being able to go to restaurants in June or July? Or
I'm thinking
not?
September. Probably September.
And that's when folks say this is going to ramp up again.
I mean, I've been following along with the models. I've pulled out my undergraduate math degree and, modeled them myself and sort of tried to figure out what that time axis, because we know what the case axis is. I'm trying to make sure my hand is in frame. The y-axis is the number of cases. So then what's the x-axis, which is time? Like what does that look like? How much time is it going to take? And when I've modeled a bell curve that's matched the bell curves that matches the data that we're starting to have right now with, putting in that the flatten the line right at the number of ventilators we have, I'm getting September to be 2 standard deviations of the mean, or 95% of people.
Okay, your math is way better than mine. So the two divergent things that I'm seeing happen are it's going to take a lot longer, and yet we are getting things to be not nearly as bad as we were afraid they were going to be. So are those really two cross currents, or are they?
They're the same. It's cause and effect. If we don't want it to be as bad as we don't want it to be, then it's going to take a lot longer. This is standard calculus stuff. This is all area under the curve. So the area under the curve is the population of North Carolina, and the population of North Carolina is not something we can change unless we massively kill off people. So we're going to have a curve that has the entire population of North Carolina underneath. Now, we can do it in a short period of time if we have a very tall, spiky curve, or we can do it in a very long period of time if we have a flat curve. But all those people of North Carolina, all the citizens of North Carolina, have to appear under that curve somehow.
Okay, Batman just walked through and turned off one of my monitors.
I lost you for a second, and now I'm frozen.
Yeah, it's the cat.
Perfect picture. See, there's a flat curve. That's what's going on, and it's a wider thing. It's the analogy that I've been giving is with drinking glasses, and every child has ever been amazed by volume in drinking glasses. You can have a wide, flat bowl, and you can have a really tall glass, and they'll both hold the same amount of water. And so think of the amount of water as the population of North Carolina, and think about how wide your vessel is as the amount of time it's going to take. And you've got to put that same population of North Carolina now into a wider vessel. It's going to take a longer time.
Okay, actually, the audience got to hear all that, and I heard it, but I wasn't paying careful attention to it because I was trying to figure out my monitor, the one that has Skype on it. Oh, I have found you. I can get you back on screen. I can't do a split screen on that monitor because it's not the one that I've got set up for doing split screens on. But at least I can put you on there and push a few more things out of the way, and we'll just kind of wrap up. So there would be me, and now there would be you. That's all I had for notes. They were extensive, and we covered them all, and we haven't quite caught the 2-hour point. I was at a podcasters meetup, an online podcasters meetup, where they're asking what the ideal length of a podcast would be. And most of the folks who were doing shows did longer than what seemed to be ideal. You actually do probably close to the ideal. You try to stay under 30 minutes, right?
25 is our sweet spot, yeah.
Yeah. And so clearly I go along. And so the guy that was hosting the meeting pointed to me and laughed because he knew that, 2 hours was nothing for this show. So we haven't even quite gotten to 2 hours. So thank you very much for being around. And
well, thank you for having me on. And thank you, audience, for watching or listening.
Yep.
And
are you enjoying
giving feedback and questions?
Are you enjoying getting out of the niche and being able to talk about other stuff?
Yeah, actually I am. I'm enjoying being able to get out of the niche and talk about other stuff.
All right, because I'm kind of looking for other folks to join in the show as often as possible, and because it is so much easier to bounce things off of somebody than to monologue, and you got other people to talk to. Now you highly produce your show. It sounds like you do a lot of editing and put things carefully together afterwards. Yeah.
The goal is to get it around 25 minutes, so we've got to cut some crap. We record for an hour and then we cut it down to 25 minutes. So more than half the show ends up on the editing room floor.
Yeah. And I've done that sort of work all my life and I'm real tired of doing it. So this is, going out to Facebook and YouTube Live, and that is never going to get edited in the audio version. I might trim up a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it goes out the way we did it here. And that's the way I like doing it. So if you're enjoying this, you're welcome to come back as often as you can.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I hope I'll be back.
And we can talk politics.
Oh, I am probably more political than you are. I actually filed papers to run for president in 2020. Write me in.
That sounds awesome. You are, Nanny Jen, the nannycast.com. Even got a logo for the folks that are watching on the video. And I am, I'm not, there I am. I'm Gary Pearce. And just another podcaster. And this has been, can I get it right here? Oh, the Report from the Hoods, Volume 3, Episode 82, August 12th, 2020. That is it for this show. There's your frozen part again.
It's going to be my photo forever.
Try to hang on to that.
That's a flat curve, guys. That's a flat curve.
All right. There's your real picture. So I will let you have the last word because the third to last and the penultimate words are over and
out.